Hello all, welcome to my channel. My name is Femi and I really hope you're doing well, and if you do have a chronic illness, I hope your symptoms are just behaving. Now, I am so late to this topic as always, and that's what you need to expect from me if you do decide to tune in. But I wanted to add my 2 cents. Now, some time ago, it might even be like a year ago now, Summer Walker posted a picture of her shrine to the Yoruba Orisha Ocean. In the caption, she kind of just expressed her gratitude to her faith and how much the shrine and just the faith has done for her and means to her. Not long after, the internet went wild with a lot of people accusing her of being demonic and kind of worshipping Satan and so on, and also a witch. Now, generations ago, worship and kind of dedication to the Orisha was our religion, and it still can be found across some parts of the diaspora and Nigeria. So now, how did we get here where so many black people are calling it demonic? Got anything to do with colonialism? Let's talk about it. Before I get into this, I've got 2 points to say. And number one, please excuse my do-rag covered blue snowball mic. I'm a broke bitch. I don't have access to any kind of better equipment just yet, but I'm starting out, but hopefully the audio quality is decent enough, it's bearable, and maybe you can even get a chuckle out of it. Second point, I saw another video, I'm going to try and dig it up and put it here, of this woman, a black woman, kind of, again, calling pre-colonial African faith demonic.
I don't know who told us you got to be a witch to be black. You are not more black by engaging in witchcraft. That is still propagating a white supremacist lie that black people in Africa didn't know Jesus.
And like with so much energy and so many people agreeing with it, and it obviously I'm going to talk about it, but it's just, yeah, in between me seeing the thing about Summer Walker and what people said and me writing this video and filming it, another thing about it went viral, so we really got to break this down now. Now, let me tell you a bit about this faith first. It's known as Isheshe, which is like the Yoruba word for tradition. Archaeological records have dated this religion as beginning as early as 500 before Common Era. More evidence might even be dug up in the future to say that it's even older. Faith is of the Yoruba people, and practitioners are found across like Western Africa, so that's Nigeria, Benin, Togo. Now, they worship Orisha, who are kind of like deities. There are hundreds of them. The supreme god of them all, Oludumare, sent 17 of them to come and populate the earth. Of the 17 of them, Oshun was the only female, and the men couldn't populate the earth without her help. Because of this, she is seen as the river goddess and is associated with love, fertility, and divine femininity. Now, do you have the same question as me? How is this demonic? One word: colonizers. Sorry, I'm just scooching her along so I'm a bit more at the center of the frame, because I know this is short like it's one of those videos where I tell you how to make money or do something on the screen. I don't, it's just a cute background. Look at little Bulbasaur guy, he's having a nap. Anyways, during the transatlantic slave trade, obviously know that European colonizers took millions of Africans from their homes and enslaved them. And before the people come in being like, oh yeah, they sold them, blah, 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 the kind of slavery slash serfdom that existed across a lot of Africa was nowhere near as bad as chattel slavery, which the Europeans did, which a lot of the Africans did not know about. Also, across these hundreds of years, though, they also stripped countless Africans of their various different cultures, kind of just trying to assimilate them into Christianity and tell them they were less than, obviously. And they rearranged geography to suit their needs and indoctrinated them all into Catholicism. Now, I'm specifically here highlighting the indoctrination, because we're going to talk more about that. Many Africans did try to hold on to their traditions, but through various manners, as they couldn't really be seen practicing it outright. This can be seen notably in religions, modern day religions now, such as Candomblé of Cuba or Santeria of Brazil, which hold many similarities to kind of like pre-colonial African religions as they stem from them. Santeria was through Spanish Catholicism and Candomblé was through Portuguese Catholicism. In fact, Ginga of Ndongo, queen of what we'd now know as Angola, was seen to convert to Catholicism for peace with the Portuguese, but was known to hold on to her traditions in secret. This is just a great example of kind of how a lot of these people knew that their faiths were the one for them, but in peace agreements, so people were trying to attack them, they kind of did this to, keep the peace, whereas they're like, this is truly what my faith is, but I'm doing this, so you'll get off my back. Get off my back. In the later years of her life, a Portuguese Capuchin priest named Cavazzi stayed with her to oversee her conversion to Catholicism. There are recorded entries of her thoughts of her, and it goes without saying that he did not think well of her people or her traditional practices. Listen to this passage that I'm going to read off my laptop over there. The opinion which these ignorant, barbarous heathens without the light of faith have, and also many who are new to it, is that the reign and the making of reign is in the hands and power of the king or lord who governs the kingdom or province, and they have recourse to him as if to worship him for this. They also foolishly believe he has the power to punish them when he is dead, as if he were alive. So when they find themselves in need of water, they go to the Lord with some gift to ask for water. He goes to the tomb of their ancestor and with humble and loving manners asks on his vassal's behalf for the grace they want. And in order to move him more to concede it, he goes on recapitulating, as in little songs, singing and retelling their heroic actions. And if he is reluctant, they assume it is because of hunger or thirst, and pour on the tomb edible and drinkable things with various ceremonies until the rain comes. But it is to be noted that they do so at the customary time for the rain to come, so as not to have their trickery discovered. Oh, there's a little cat outside. I would turn the camera, but it's looking at me. Hi, cat. Oh, it looks like it's made out of gingerbread. It's like black and brown. You know, it's staring at me now. It's really creepy. What? Now, just bear in mind this passage that I read you is from a priest. Now, if this is from a priest who's kind of meant to be, like peaceful and unjudgmental, now, if they move with this energy, imagine what kind of like actual common folk would think. And imagine what the actual men and women, I don't know, who had the weapons would be thinking of these people. Note also, this is how he spoke of the Queen, a person with then quite absolute authority. Now, I'm going to read an excerpt from an article called Christianity as a Double-Edged Sword in Africa, as it describes of how colonizers thought of Africans in the 19th century. The scramble for Africa began in 1880, when European nations rushed to acquire the most economically viable parts of the continent. Although many European nations were no strangers to the idea of colonization at this point, Sean Stillwell explains that a sudden increase in the practice was enabled by a new philosophy known as scientific racism. Now, according to this philosophy, Stillwell writes, it was possible to scientifically rank the various human races in order from the most primitive to the most advanced. This ideology helped to justify European expansion by suggesting from the conquest of Africa was ordained by nature and science because Africans were, according to this ideology, inferior to Europeans. This ideology, drenched in ethnocentrism, was apparent in the Europeans' treatment of Africans, as colonial efforts were partially seen as an exercise in curing Africans of their primitiveness, and Christianity played a key role in their attempts to assimilate Africans to their presumably advanced ways of life, while the African continent was being exploited for its resources. Like, you just really have to take a breath and just like think of that, just take that all in. Now, this excerpt really expertly explains how kind of Europeans justified the colonialism of Africa because they believed what they were doing to essentially be the will of God. Now, couple it with the quote from Cavazzi earlier, and we really establish that the colonizers really believed what they were doing to be just and had a flawed and bluntly disgusting view of science to eradicate any form of conscience that they may or may not have had. Now, I could speak about the evolution of ethnocentrism and especially into the modern day, and if I'm willing to traumatize myself enough to look this up to put it into a video for you, I will. But right now, I just want to say that, like, even if you don't see it so much blatantly, this for ethnocentrism is still alive and well, and I can definitely say it's alive and well in the West. Even if people aren't coming and saying this, which to be fair, a lot of people still do, you just need to look in the comments of like any popular black person's video, and if you dig deep enough, you will see someone leaving an ethnocentric comment, especially when said black person might have done something even a little bit bad. I just want to remind you that how they were moving then has just evolved now. It's just changed. Whether it's more subtle or not, it doesn't matter. It's still very much here and it has been passed down. Now, a really modern day example of this that at least an opinion that a lot of people in the West carry is that black people are more resistant to pain. They think our skin is thicker, and there's been quotes of numerous doctors saying that they think black people can't, feel pain, or we've got thick skin, so when they can cut through it, they're not so concerned about giving us painkillers or moving gently or whatever. And now, obviously, this has led to many traumatic hospital visits for black people. to be fair, including myself, especially black women. Regardless of intention or believing black people to be lesser or not, this is still rooted in ethnocentrism. But I digress. Back to the topic at hand. Spent quite a bit of time talking about colonial times. Now I just want to get back into kind of more recent centuries and how we got to where we are now. Fast forward to the 19th century and a lot has changed. A big chunk of Africa has been converted to Catholicism during the 15th and 17th centuries. Slavery in the US was abolished in 1865, but what came after was just another chapter of hardships in the lives of African Americans. Although slavery was abolished, the brutality of the white race and colonizers just continued, albeit in a different form. Laws granted certain rights to black people, including the right to own property, the right to marry, and the right to sue, but not against white people. The laws and setup in the US at this point still meant that black people always had to work under white people and still in unfair conditions. Because of this, church, school, and family became the center of black life post-slavery. These are the only safe spaces for them, with churches becoming a kind of hub, not just for kind of worship, but also community action, political organization, and learning. Stripped to their former cultures generations ago, Christianity became home. It was the only faith they knew, and it was quickly evolving to become a space of solace and empowerment by the day. While it was used as a tool of oppression against black people, it was also now becoming a source of their empowerment, a force with which to arm themselves and rise up against the way it had been used to kind of justify their subjugation. Now, one notable man who had an influence on this was John Chilembwe. He traveled to the US from his home, native Nyasaland, which is modern-day Malawi, with his mentor, an English missionary named Joseph Booth. He came into spaces where he heard Afro-American militants speak, denouncing the ways they had been treated by the government and the white populace. Chilembe was heavily influenced, and in 1901 he broke his partnership with Booth and returned home. He formed the Providence Industrial Mission and openly spoke out against colonial establishment. He painted the Christian ideals of egalitarianism as kind of evidence that the Christians had treated black people both unchristianly and unjustly. By 1915, he'd had enough followers for a small army. He tried to peacefully protest the current treatment of black soldiers in the war against Germany. After his letter was ignored, he turned to more violent means. Now, after an amazing, empowering speech, he rallied the followers to rise up against the oppressors, despite knowing the consequences that were likely to befall them. While the uprising led to the death of many of his men, he died a martyr, and his uprising is often seen as a watershed moment in Malawian history. Back in the United States, black churches were continuing to thrive. Since the formation of the first independent black denomination, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, formalized in 1816, more denominations formed across the country. They became places that allowed African Americans to speak freely and denounce the kind of like American white Christianity and the nation at large, and galvanize African Americans to rebel against the racist system in any way that they could. However, influences of European Catholicism still drip through into many churches. Many black Christians participated in the civil rights movement, including an openly gay Quaker, Bayard Rustin, who played a key part in organizing the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in the 60s. Despite his many contributions, Rustin was largely ignored by his peers because of his homosexuality. These two things together, where we have African Americans who have been born into a religion which now in many ways has been their salvation, church, community, and prayer, and then sometimes blended with the remains of their traditions that have survived through the separations, indoctrinations, and murders of colonialism, and the roots of how Christianity came to be in their hands. Through colonialism and a centuries-long campaign that aimed to dehumanize black people, their culture, their traditions, their quirks, and strip them of all of it, and it leaves us with where we are today. So many people continuing with what was done to their ancestors in some form, hating a faith that was once written into the very fabric of their culture. It goes without saying that it's beyond tragic. And now this scenario isn't exclusive to the thing that I'm talking about, of course. You'll see it across any group of people that has been subjugated or indoctrinated at some point, where many, even if they escape the situation, may still maintain the beliefs that were forced onto them, even if those beliefs actively harm them. It takes work to undo that and get out of that system, actively rebuke kind of falsehoods and lies that are forced upon them by their subjugators. It's really hard sometimes to even realize, especially now that you've been indoctrinated, that you're in a system. That's how indoctrination works. And I just want to state plainly that I am not judging anybody for their faith. I don't want anyone who's got kind of really bad listening comprehension to think I have something against Christianity or any religion or any faith. Regardless of religion, faith is a truly beautiful thing. And I have seen It motivates so many people to do better, and I've seen many good things come because of it. However, using said faith to cast judgment on people just because of what you've been told when someone's doing something that's not harming people is disgusting. And then to do it to the faith that your ancestors had worshipped for generations, and to not even spend a second thinking or interrogating where that thought came from before lambasting someone over the internet when what they're doing is harmless to you and everybody around them. In fact, it's probably the opposite. Embarrassing. The worst bit really is how many people still have kind of fused versions of, their predecessors' African religions and Catholicism. And they can do this and still be completely happy, still be cool, and not be casting judgment on anything. If they can do that, why can't you? Google is free. The library is free. Critical thinking is free. It's 2023 and you're still doing what the colonizers wanted you to do from generations ago. When will you get out of your indoctrination?